this speech today. So I'm no expert in speech delivery, but over the course of my time here at MPS, I've gained a few tips and tricks for delivering a good speech, and that's why you'll see the MPS banner on my slides here. I actually presented this, or I had it in my back pocket for a presentation. It was actually an impromptu presentation. I wasn't called, so I figured I would give that speech today. So the first thing you got to think about preparing for your speech is the methods of speech delivery. As Toastmasters, I think we all know these things. And our most important and our favorite one is an impromptu speech. That's when you're called upon or you're in a meeting and you have to give that impromptu answer to a question. This, of course, is off the cuff. There's ways to prepare for it. If you know who's asking that question, if you know your audience, you really got to maybe do a little background searching for what you're going to say during that impromptu session. The second way to deliver a speech is that manuscript speaking. And if you go to church or if you go to some service, a lot of people do this. They'll stand at the lectern. This is a lectern. And they'll read that speech, maybe make some eye contact to kind of draw your speaker or your audience in. This is a direct method. Today, I'm using an extemporaneous speech method. I am referring to my media here, which is my PowerPoint slides, and I'm giving a little bit of impromptu speaking. And this, of course, is a blend of impromptu and manuscript. And then you have the memorized speaking. And if you're familiar with TED Talks, a lot of TED Talks people are not very well versed in speaking. But because maybe they're in the academia, they don't have to get in front of people and be confident. So they memorize their actual script. And it sometimes won't even notice that they memorize it. For example, Bill Clinton's, her name is escaping me. Bill Clinton's...
Tart? No?
So Bill Clinton's, the one he...
Monica.
Yes, Monica Lewinsky. She was deathly afraid of when she went to TED Talks. And she memorized her speech so well that she is actually one of the highest rated TED Talk speakers of all time because she memorized it. And it's a really, it's a kind of a scary topic for her since, it's kind of embarrassing. But so preparing for your delivery. So the first thing you got to do is a little bit of recon. As a military member, I know a little bit about recon. You got to go into your space, and here we all kind of know this space. But if you're giving a speech at work or you're giving a speech at school or wherever, you got to get in there and look for some things. First, you're going to see if there's a lectern. Is there a podium, an actual freestanding lectern? Did I get that right, Brett? The size and location of the room. Are you going to be using a microphone? I have trouble with microphones. Why? Because of reverberation. Has anyone ever tried to speak with a microphone that's reverberating? I start to drag my words on because I'm hearing myself. So that is a big part of reconning your area, reconning your space, and preparing for that delivery. You also have to know your audience a little. I think here at Toastmasters, we all kind of know each other. So we kind of know everyone's quirks, and maybe you're giving a speech to a certain demographic, maybe at work, maybe at school. But you got to know a little bit about what really gets them going, what gets their gears moving, so you can have an impact when you're giving that delivery. Some other things that you got to think about before you deliver that speech is your behavior when you're up at the podium or lectern. So I like to practice. I practice this speech twice, maybe 3 times. Just kind of, I did it out loud. I went through the slides. I looked through what I was going to talk about. I practiced it standing, which is important because if you're practicing sitting down, maybe when you actually do it, you're going to be standing. You're going to be in a little different position. With lecterns, without lecterns, with your props. So if I was using a prop today, I would want to include that in my practice. You also want to time your speeches. So here at Toastmasters, we all know that you're timed on your speeches. And don't you hate that when you're at work and someone's giving 5 minutes to speak, and here we are at 10 minutes, and you're like, so. And with your audience, I think we hit this big time last week. I think the 2 speeches last week, they had practice, and I think I recommended Daniela, hey, maybe next time you practice in front of your 2-year-old. Maybe they'll find something that that you didn't see before. So practice in front of an audience and get that feedback to further refine your speech line items. And then you could film yourself. I know Monique's done this a few times at the meeting here, and I think Carrie, you did as well. Film yourself, you see those things that maybe you sometimes, I say so a lot. I like to belly button. I'm probably doing it today. Feel the belly button?
Flashing.
Yeah. And then if you are going to have questions at the end, maybe rehearse some expected answers to those questions. And then some techniques for delivery. And I think a lot of us have seen these probably in the Pathways manual. You gotta get that open. You gotta have that opening that kind of opens your audience up. Today I didn't really have a prepared opening, but I used the word of the day totally to kind of get everyone. You know, they had a little laugh inside their head or maybe out loud, and they're like, "This is gonna be maybe a good speech. Maybe I'll stay engaged and not fall asleep." And then another technique: have hand and feet cognizance. So a lot of this has to go with use of objects. If you're going to use a prop in your speech, make sure you know what you're going to do with that prop and make sure it effectively emphasizes your speech line items. Make some eye contact along with the speech, and you can even do that when you're manuscript speaking. And then vocalization is important. What kind of volume do you have to be at? How fast do you want to deliver the message in your speech? And then what pitch to get those emphasis on certain words. And then don't be afraid of pauses. I had a great instructor tell me, don't be afraid of the pauses. Why? Because people, when you pause for a long period, they're thinking. So they might be helping that idea kind of plant in their head. And then of course be cognizant of your filler words. So here's some of the resources that I gained, or I used when I was here at MTS, TED Talks, the official TED Guide to Public Speaking. I think every Toastmaster should have this on their bookshelf. Exploring Public Speaking, this is actually where I got the topics in this slide, that's where I grabbed this from. Storytelling with Data is another great one, and Pathways Basecamp, of course, for all us Toastmasters is also a great reference. All right, thank you.